You grow up in a dying mill town in Pennsylvania. Third of four kids. Your father worked the same factory floor for 22 years and retired with a bad back and a pension that got restructured into nothing the year after he stopped needing. Your mother cleaned offices at night so you could pretend during the day that your family was a different kind of family. You were good with words, good at talking your way in or out of rooms. Your high school English teacher told you that you had a gift. You went to a state school on loans. You majored in journalism because you wanted to expose people like the ones who killed your father's pension. You graduated in May into a job market that had already decided print journalism was a legacy industry. You spend 14 months writing local government briefs for a regional outlet that pays $31,000 a year and dies in a merger before your 26th birthday. You are not bitter. You are broke. There's a difference, and you won't admit it for another 3 years. The job comes through a college friend who works in communications for Senator Richard Caldwell's re-election campaign. It's an 11-point race in a purple state. They need someone who understands how local papers work, who to call, what to bury, what to amplify. You are that person. Entry-level comms. $47,000, health insurance, a shared office in Harrisburg that smells like burnt coffee and carpet cleaner. You are very good at it. Caldwell wins by 9. The campaign manager, a man named Bryce, shakes your hand the night of the results and says, "You know how to make things disappear." He means it as a compliment. You take it as one. Bryce moves into the Senate office as chief of staff. You move with him as deputy communications director. Your official job is managing press outreach, drafting statements, handling the rhythm of the news cycle. Your unofficial job starts 11 months in, when a junior staffer is caught on video making a comment that is, technically, ambiguous, but not in any way that matters. You have 6 hours before the clip goes wide. You call 3 reporters who owe you, spike the story at 2 outlets, reframe it at a third as a hit piece by a rival campaign, and have a written apology drafted, reviewed, and posted before noon. Staffer keeps his job. Bryce calls you into his office. He doesn't say anything for 10 seconds. Then, you're good at this. 2 weeks later, you get a $12,000 raise and a title change. Senior advisor, strategic communications. You tell yourself that's all it was. Crisis management. The skill set you built watching powerful people try to control what gets said about them. You are very good at the skill set. That's the whole problem. The first real fix comes 16 months in. A state development contract worth $220 million. A construction firm that donated $400,000 to Caldwell's PAC got the bid over 2 lower estimates. A reporter at the Pittsburgh paper is close, has documents, a source, a draft ready. Bryce sits you down and explains the situation the way a dentist explains a root canal. Straightforward, clinical, like the discomfort is incidental. He needs you to find out who the source is. You say that's not what you do. He says the senator has a lot of relationships that keep a lot of people employed and a lot of things funded. And maybe you want to think about what a second-term Caldwell means for the district your parents live in. You find the source in 4 days. It's a mid-level procurement officer. Bryce handles the rest. The officer takes a voluntary early retirement package. The story dies. You tell yourself you didn't do anything. You just found a name. That's all. The rationalizing gets easier every time. And that's the part that should worry you. By year 3, you are the fixer. It's not a title anyone writes on paper. It's a role that accretes around you like sediment. One quiet crisis at a time, one buried story at a time, one source neutralized at a time. You keep a personal encrypted drive with documents that exist nowhere else. Insurance, you tell yourself. You keep meticulous notes with timestamps because you need to know exactly how deep in you are on any given day. The answer, when you check, is always deeper than the last time you checked. You have a protocol. When something breaks, you get the call first, before legal, before Bryce, before the senator himself. You triage, assess exposure, identify the pressure points, find who can be paid, who can be scared, who can be discredited, and what the story needs to be instead of what it is. You are very fast. That speed is what they're paying for. Your salary is now $190,000. You live in D.C. in a 1-bedroom near the Capitol. You have no close friends because proximity to what you know is a liability you can't explain to people over dinner. Senator Caldwell is not evil. That's the part that takes you longest to understand and then longest to stop using as an excuse. He's a man who made one bad trade early. Decided that staying in power long enough to do good required doing bad things to stay in power, and has been renegotiating that trade ever since, each time at a worse rate. He genuinely believes in 3 or 4 pieces of legislation. He is kind to his staff at the Christmas party. He sends handwritten notes when someone's parent dies. The morning you brief him on a situation involving a former aide and a non-disclosure agreement that cost the office $135,000 in unreported funds, he is wearing a sweater and drinking decaf and looks like someone's grandfather. He listens to you. He nods. He says, "Handle it." He goes back to his briefing binder. The gap between those two things, the sweater, the nod, doesn't register on his face. It registers on yours. You handle it. The NDA situation is where the line moves. Up to that point, you have buried stories, neutralized sources, reframed narratives, and killed coverage. You have not falsified documents. You have not pressured anyone with information you weren't supposed to have. The NDA requires both. The former aide is a 29-year-old policy staffer. She has a lawyer. Her lawyer has questions about the payment source. You spend 9 days building an alternative paper trail that routes the $135,000 through a nonprofit Caldwell's Allies control. You have one conversation with the aide's lawyer that you will never write down and that he will never record, and that both of you will deny if asked. The aide signs. You walk out of that meeting and sit in your car for 25 minutes. You are thinking about the journalism teacher who told you that you had a gift. You wonder what she thought you were going to do with it. You start the car. You go back to work. The thing about operating at this level is that your value is the information you carry. Every fix you run adds to the inventory. The procurement contract. The NDA. A DUI that got transferred to another jurisdiction. A land deal in 2019 where the senator's brother-in-law made $1.4 million on property rezoned 2 months after a Senate vote. A meeting in Philadelphia in 2021 that you know happened because you arranged the room and you are the only person outside that room who knows who was in it. Each piece of this inventory is simultaneously what makes you indispensable and what makes you a problem to be managed. You are protected by what you know. You are imprisoned by it. Every morning you wake up and you are both the safest person in this orbit and the most expendable, and the distance between those two things is measured entirely by the senator's political health, over which you have significant influence and zero control. Your mother calls on a Tuesday. She asks what you're working on. You say oversight communications. She says that sounds important. She says your father would have been proud of you for working in government. You say thank you. You hang up and stand in your kitchen for a long time. The federal investigation opens quietly. No press. A subpoena to a mid-level donor. Nothing that looks like anything. You see it because you know what to look for and because you have a source inside the U.S. Attorney's Office who is not your source officially and does not know they are your source. The subpoena is narrow, but the 2021 Philadelphia meeting is on the perimeter of what it's asking about. You brief Bryce. Bryce briefs legal. Legal says sit tight. You know from the encrypted drive sitting in a safe deposit box in Bethesda that sit tight is not a viable strategy. The Philadelphia meeting connects to 3 people who have already been interviewed. You have 11 days, maybe 14, before the subpoena expands. You spend those 11 days doing 2 things simultaneously. The first is running the most sophisticated document management operation of your career, a controlled, legally defensible reduction of the paper footprint around the meeting. Not destruction, reclassification, reorganization. The kind of thing that looks like administrative routine if you document the process correctly and that a prosecutor will spend 18 months trying to prove is something else. The second thing you do is quietly consult with an attorney who does not represent anyone in this office and who you pay in cash for 2 hours of hypothetical conversation about the personal exposure profile of someone in a position like yours. She doesn't blink. She's had this conversation before. She tells you that someone in a position like yours has probably been a witness before they know they're a target. She tells you the window between those 2 things is where decisions get made that people live with for the rest of their lives. She hands you her card. You put it in your wallet. You go back to the office. Bryce calls you in on a Friday evening. The senator is not in the room. Bryce sits across from you the way men sit when they've already made a decision and are waiting for the meeting to make it official. He says the legal team thinks it would be cleaner if your role going forward was reduced. Informal. Consultative. Your contract would be restructured. You would be, technically, no longer a Senate employee of record. He says this in the same tone he uses to discuss poll numbers. You sit there and understand, with complete clarity, that you are being detached from the hull before impact. 3 years of building the infrastructure that made this office safe. Every story you killed, every source you neutralized, every document you reorganized. And at the first real pressure from outside, you become a rounding error in someone else's survival calculus. Same thing they did to every person you ever helped them do it to. You do not cooperate. You do not retaliate. What you do is spend 6 weeks transitioning quietly out of the office, collecting your references, and opening a private communications consultancy that has, within 90 days, for clients who are not named Richard Caldwell and who have no idea what you have been doing for the past 3 years. Your skill is entirely portable. The ability to make things disappear does not require a Senate badge. You do not touch the encrypted drive. You do not call the attorney. You keep the safe deposit box and you pay the annual fee and you tell yourself that's just caution, not leverage. You are probably lying to yourself. You have gotten very good at that too. The investigation expands. You read about it in the newspaper, which is something you once would have been managing from the inside. 2 former aides are subpoenaed. The Philadelphia meeting is mentioned in a court filing without context. Bryce releases a statement saying the senator is fully cooperating. You wrote that exact sentence, for a different situation, in 2019. You recognize the cadence of it. You sit with your coffee and read it 3 times. You have a meeting on a Thursday with a new client. Tech sector. Regulatory exposure. A story that needs to not be a story. He sits across from you and explains his problem with the careful omissions of a man who knows what he's leaving out. You listen. You ask the right questions. By the end of the hour, you know exactly what happened, what he needs, and what it will cost to make it disappear. You name a number. He doesn't flinch. You shake hands at the door. On the street outside, you check your phone. 17 emails. 2 calls from a reporter who has been working the Caldwell story and whose number you do not recognize, but whose publication you do. You put the phone in your pocket. You were going to be the person who exposed people like this. The kid from the mill town with the gift for words and the righteous idea that what got said about power was something that mattered. Somewhere between the first buried story and the restructured paper trail, and the aide who signed and the attorney and the safe deposit box, that person got handled. Quietly. Professionally. With no press and no fingerprints. You know exactly how it was done. You did it yourself. That's a wrap. The story is fiction, but every powerful office has someone in it whose job title doesn't describe their actual job. And right now, somewhere, a phone is ringing with a situation that needs to not be a situation. If this made you think, drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. More deep dives coming. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. See you in the next.